Hi, Lou here to ask a question about games. Does your game have an interesting beginning and an interesting ending? It's not easy to do, but many players want it. Here's a quote from Chris Thurston, who was talking about the video game Sins of a Solar Empire, but this applies to most single-player and even some multi-sided games. Quote, "The thing about grand strategy games in general, they tend to have much more interesting beginnings than endings." Unquote. Examples of games that begin and end interestingly. Britannia, for example. You start with the big bang of the Roman invasion in 43 AD, and you end with the big bang of the kingship competition in 1066. Well, that's partly because I picked what turns out to be probably the best possible situation for a Britannia-like game. Then we have Freeform Britannia in Outer Space, a prototype called Doomfleets. There are big invasions to start while the natives explore and exploit within the galaxy. Then there are big invasions near the end, but there are no kings. These are separate species. Interest in between, of course, is just as important, if not more important. If players are doing the same things and thinking about the same things throughout the game, it had better be a short game, or it'll probably become tedious. The grind, quote unquote, is undesirable even if some people tolerate it, especially in video games. Many games naturally divide into phases when players at least think about different things. For example, chess. You have the opening, the middle game, and the end game, and that can be more generalized for board games as the build-up, the deployment, and in exploiting what you've done so far. In RPGs, you have survival to start with in many of them, then low-level adventure, then at mid-level the characters can become leaders in the local area, and at high level they become involved in the politics and affect nations. And all those require different ways of behaving. Many games include a gradual increase in the capabilities of an avatar, which is a form of phasing, including most role-playing games. Levels can provide a kind of phasing, whether it's character levels or going into deeper dungeon levels. And yet, many gamers don't want a big bang at the end that can ruin their plans. We want, quote, "to crush my enemies, see them driven before me, and hear the lamentations of their women," unquote, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan the Barbarian. On the other hand, Jim Jordan, who GMs Britannia at WBC and PresCon, likes close games. He's into finesse. Well, I like finesse too, but only when it ends up crushing my enemy. So two sides to this. Some people are happy with a game ending without tension, which happens when you crush your enemies. Some players are unhappy with a game ending without tension. But think about this. Artificial catch-up mechanisms are no one's friend. I'm going to quote Nicholas Helmberg, who was one of the playtesters for my Dual Britannia game. "Every attempt to add catch-up mechanics brings a risk of perverse incentives, quote unquote, where the players play the mechanic instead of the game," unquote. He's absolutely right. The catch-up mechanism itself can become something that players aim at, can become something that is a very important part of the game, which is not really the intention. Of course, in a two-player game, one player can resign if it's clear who's going to win, so you don't have that winding down to a whimper because somebody resigns. But in a multi-sided game, a resignation messes up all the other players, so it's frowned upon. Now think also, in a highly player interactive game for more than two players, the players are the catch-up mechanism. How they interact is the catch-up mechanism. But what about a game with little or no player interaction? Then you don't have that. The players can't be the catch-up mechanism. You're stuck with artificial catch-up mechanisms, and to that I say, good luck to you. Now, I haven't said so much about beginnings. If you're making a history game, try to choose a point in history where something big happens. But that's not always possible. Sometimes the build-up is important. In a non-history game, keep in mind that you want to start with a bang. But on the other hand, you don't want those unfamiliar with the game to flounder. In Britannia, for example, which is a history game, the Roman invasion is a big bang, but a novice in charge of Rome itself is not good, because they won't do nearly as well as somebody with a little bit of experience. So, your big starts have to keep in mind that the players may not yet know what it is they're supposed to do, and so they may play it badly. Nonetheless, given the problems with trying to avoid low-tension game endings, it's best to focus on the beginnings first and worry about the endings later. Thanks for listening.